Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the National Lands Podcast. My name is Max Christian. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at National Land Realty and your host for this episode. Now, today, we're talking with Dr. Gary Schnitkey. He's with the University of Illinois and is a professor of agricultural and consumer economics, and he is the soybean industry chair in agricultural strategy. Dr. Gary Schnitkey is one of the leading minds in the United States when it comes down to agricultural economics. This is the third in a series of podcasts that we have done to target what is exactly happening to America's heartland when it comes down to agriculture. There's a lot of negative impact that we've seen from tariffs throughout the United States. And we started this series with Jackson Takish, who is the chief economist at Farmer Mac. We also discussed the issue with Chris Clayton, who is the policy editor at Progressive Farmer. And with Dr. Gary Schnitkey here, this is the third in this series. We dive deep into this, and I'll just be upfront with this. A lot of what we have to talk about are negative topics. The impact that we're seeing with farmers, with the raised cost of inputs and the lowering cost of commodities, in particular, the lowering of trade for these commodities have really impacted America's heartland, and farmers are struggling. We're going to talk about what exactly is making them struggle and what the path forward could be. Now, sit back and enjoy. This is a terrific topic to discuss. It's not a terrific topic in terms of what we're discussing, but the information in here is extremely valuable. This is stuff that you want to listen to, and this is something you don't want to miss. Thank you.
Okay, I am here with Gary Schnitkey, and Gary, you're out of Illinois, the University of Illinois. I about messed up and said Illinois State.
No, wrong one. Just that
wrong one. I almost messed
up.
I caught myself though. University of Illinois. Gary Schnitkey is a professor of agricultural and consumer economics. He's on he's soybean industry chair for the agricultural strategy. I'm going to learn how to read at one point, and it's going to be awesome, but it'll be later. Gary, just give people a little bit of a background. You've been on here before. This is for any kind of new listeners, and I want anybody listening to know, what a privilege it is to talk to Gary here. Gary knows the industry better than most people are going to know it. So, as far as when it comes to agricultural sciences, you're a fairly well-known name in being an expert there. I don't want to inflate your ego or anything, but I got to throw credit where it's due. But if you could give people your background and sort of how you got to your current position.
Yeah, I've been here at the University of Illinois since 1998, so that's a moment already. So, but here I do crop economics, and I work a lot with our FBFM, Farm Business Farm Management, which is a record-keeping financial service here in Illinois. It was originally started as a University of Illinois extension project, but it has over 6,000 farms enrolled in this state. 25% of the acres are enrolled in the FBFM, and we provide financial services to farmers, and we use that data to say a lot about what's going on in Illinois. Also work closely with our Illinois farm managers and rural appraisers, secretary treasurer of that group, and work closely with Illinois Corn and Illinois Soybean Association. And we do a lot of different projects, but mainly revolving around the economics and risk management associated with corn and soybeans, which is about over 90% of the acres here in Illinois and much of the Midwest as well. Got here, I grew up on a grain and hog farm in Northwest Ohio. Went to Ohio State University. I won't use but the Ohio State University, and got a bachelor's there. Got my PhD here at the University of Illinois, and then had the opportunity to go back to Ohio State for a while, and finally made it back here. Since been here since 1998.
I want to ask you an off-the-cuff question. What have you found to be the most rewarding part about doing what you do, about being a college professor in agricultural economics?
That's what I've enjoyed the most is so I've held an extension appointment, which means that I work with farmers and other groups over the years. So, I've been here since 1998. So working with the farmers, students here in Illinois, and over that time, you develop friendships with them and root for them, and um, so just developing relationships within the industry is what I would say is the most rewarding. And along the way, we look at economic issues. So that's why what originally gets us together.
And as far as the work that you do, because I mean, you go and you have to, you're as part of a professor, you do research projects and you gather data and you do your own academic research and everything. And then the other part of that is of course instructing students and educating them and providing them with the information they need for whatever they're going to use it for. What's sort of, in terms of the types of research that you do, is that like an enjoyable side of it? Is that sort of like a driving piece of it to do your own, like, do you like putting your own name on things? I don't know how that goes. Like, it's just a really random question that popped into my head.
No, so
like,
yeah, no, I very much like doing research, and I'll just give you an example of some of the. So I worked with Illinois Corn on a project called Precision Conservation Management, and they actually have done most of the collecting of this data, but we've gotten over 100,000 acres in Illinois, and we collect the field practices. So every time a machinery goes off over the field, we have it recorded. We know what the application rates were and what they did. I have looked at that data extensively. We've looked at it from an economic standpoint. That's why I'm involved in that. But no, just having the opportunity to work with that data, then say something about what's the most profitable. I've very much like that. My farmers within the state listen closely to what we find with that data, and so and then you do have to put your name on it, because people either the name of the person matters a lot, whether people believe it or not. So when you do put your name on something, you want it to be right, and you work hard at making sure that is as good as you can get it.
Yeah, I thought it would be a kind of a fun. I kind of wanted the part of that goes into letting people understand, sort of what you do behind the scenes, like, because anybody thinks professor, and it's like, oh, you stand up there and you tell students what to do and what to think and what to read, and then you grade them on how they do it, and then you go home. And it's like, well, no, there's this whole other side where like you're involved in community and research projects, and like it's pretty intensive, and it takes up a good chunk of your professional life is doing those things as well. And I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, no, and actually, as all agriculture is, we're always in the state of transition, and these the students that are coming through here, you want them to do well, but you also want to be sure that you're giving them realistic looks at what the economics of this is going to be in the future, and what you're going to have to do to be successul, or as far as we know, we can say what that is, so that they can make decisions. And agriculture, while it's a rewarding career, it's also has its ups and downs. So preparing people for that is you have to be involved with the research and the economics and looking at those things, so that you can give them a realistic view of that. I've been around a while and seen the ups and the downs. So
I'm going to say, well, the commodities markets in general, from an investment standpoint, has a reputation of being one of the single most volatile things that you can be involved with. And that's that's any kind. Whenever you're working with a futures market of any kind, you're going to be volatile. But commodities, especially, there's there's some ups and it's a very emotional market.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And it's actually, so if you're talking about the price of corn and soybeans in the future, we do use futures markets to say what that looks like. And if you're betting, and I use that as the best indicator what the future looks like, with the caveat that it can change tomorrow. But if we knew what could change it, we would predict it, but we don't know. A good example of that was back in 2020, and if you go back there, that was in the height of COVID. But if in July and August, corn prices were below $4, which is were below $3 at that point in time. And at that point in time, no one would have said we would have went on the run that we did. But between that point, we had a derecho hit Iowa. We had the Chinese building the swine herd, and then we've had the Ukraine-Russia. No one would have anticipated. About the only one that you could have anticipated is the Chinese building their hog herd. But from that $3 point, we went up to $5 and $6 corn, and that was a good ride. Now we're back to below $4. So
yeah. Well, and so I want to lean into your expertise here and jump into the sort of topics at hand, because we of course we always kind of prep a little bit and try to get current events here so that it's valuable for anybody listening. And lo and behold, the areas that you are focused on, corn and soybeans, seem to be sort of the epicenter of all current events right now. When we're talking about, and one of the biggest impacts of those that we're seeing is tariffs. And it's sort of a thing that is impacting the whole Midwest. The news headlines have been all over Arkansas and Nebraska, have been focal points. And as far as headlines go, there's been some farmer meetings and some press-worthy video clips that you see floating around and stuff like that. Help us cut through some of the static here and get to the main pieces. What is the impact of tariffs right now for soy and corn markets across the Midwest? And is it just headlines, or are things really as shaky as it seems?
No. So right now, if you're looking at cash prices for corn and soybeans, they're below $4 for corn and below $10 for soybeans. That's down considerably from several years ago. Part of that is that, we've gotten used to the Ukraine-Russia situation, so we've rebuilt our capacity there. And we were always going to see lower prices from those highs. The tariffs are not good. Let's just say it that way. They're not good. They're not good from both our input side, because we import a lot of our commodities, and our output. And again, if you're looking at corn and soybeans, our major export market is China. China and the U.S. are in a trade war right now, and so far this year we have not seen China buy any soybeans, and usually that they would be booking soybeans by now. So and so that's putting that's not good. And you're looking at that, and so one hopes that situation is resolved between China and the U.S., but there's no guarantee that it will be. And the tariff issue probably has longer run implications for the Midwest. Our major competitor in soybeans is Brazil. and Brazil now produces more soybeans than the United States, and the tariff situation causes Brazil to look like a more attractive place to buy soybeans. So the longer run of this is that the tariffs accelerate the growth of soybean production and agricultural production in Brazil, and that as they build their capacity, that's a long-term overhang on our market. So yes, it's the tariffs are not a good thing, and they're causing lower prices now, and we've had lower incomes for corn and soybeans last year. 2023 wasn't a particularly good year. What did help that out a lot was economic assistance programs, payments from the federal government, which happened to be received this year. But we're looking at low incomes across the Midwest, and across the crop sector in general is looking at low incomes right now.
Yeah, and as far as the scale of what we're talking about with our contract with China, what historically soybean purchases would be in the range of 12 billion, 12.6 billion or something like that. Is that the kind of
yeah. And so so far we haven't seen any. So what does
a shortfall of $12 billion on an industry that would normally have it?
Yeah. So so we're watching that and seeing where that all goes, and if something isn't resolved, we'll probably be looking at lower soybean prices in the future.
And then so when you're looking at the general economics of the situation, there's a shortfall of 12 billion in soybeans. I don't know what the shortfall is in corn, as far as that. You could probably throw out a number. I would just believe you. But if there's a shortfall in the corn market right now, what's the aid package that is being discussed it's like $15 billion in total.
Yeah, 10. The last I heard was $10 billion, and we'll see where that all works out to. There was a aid package that totaled $10 billion for the 2024 crop. That resulted in Illinois or Midwest farmers receiving about $37 per acre. So that $37 per acre was received this year. We here attributed that to the 24 crop and put it on income for the 2024 because it was receivable at that point in time. But without that, just to give you a feel, without that, our incomes from our farm business, farm management averaged about $13,000. So and that was with that ECAP payment. And if it hadn't been there, it would have been minus $20,000. So that ECAP payment was big last year. This year, we will receive. We've budgeted about $65 per acre for commodity title payments under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So, and that's a big number, but
at that almost double from what you're talking about from the year before. 7.
Yep, and then we'll have another ad hoc disaster assistance like ECAP in the works. Again, that's going to push us probably to higher incomes than last year, just because of the size of those payments. If we weren't receiving government payments, we would be negative incomes again. So all of our incomes in the Midwest or in Illinois and across much of the Midwest and across much of the nation is from those government payments.
So I'm not nearly on the same level as yourself as far as economics knowledge. My MBA doesn't make up for nearly a fraction of your experience, but I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say when we have a $12 billion shortfall just in soybeans, and that's just the soybean market, and we're going to put money, subsidy or however it's phrased, we're going to subsidize that with potentially 10 to 13, $15 billion. You've got a net loss overall to the country of quite a bit.
Tariffs. So
it's one of those costs that doesn't get discussed, though. It's like we not only have the lack of income, we also have the loss of compensation. And so it's like there's a dual-sided thing that we're looking at in commodities markets of due to economic policies like tariffs. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, tariffs, of course, economist is going to argue that you shouldn't have tariffs, and we can argue about what the Trump administration is doing, but the one, all right, the one group that exports in this country are corn and soybean production, as well as livestock. So if we're going to get in a trade war and other countries are going to put, tariffs on our goods, it's corn, soybeans, and those agricultural products that export that get hurt in that process. So, yeah.
And there's one of those, like, because that's kind of been the conversation, is like how much have tariffs contributed to, government budgets versus what's going out, and the dollar amount that's coming in due to the tariffs. The conversation is not had as far as like what's the operating loss in compensation for industries damaged, and the revenue that's lost from those industries by trading partners going elsewhere. I mean, pretty quickly you can just, I'm not even going to fuzzy math that one, but it looks like it's probably a net loss when it comes down to it.
I haven't done the math on that either, actually, but
at least a break even maybe, but it doesn't look like a net gain. If you just talk about the income that's coming in, then you could look at it. It's money there that wasn't there before. But then when you look at the opportunity cost that's lost elsewhere, there's a lot going on under the hood that I had not even, in the conversations that I've had so far, I had not even considered this part of it. It's like, oh, okay, that's okay.
Yeah. So the other thing, like even in the soybean market, China is going to buy most of their soybeans from Brazil. Well, they're going to buy more of their soybeans from Brazil than they did in the past. And we're going to sell, U.S. is going to sell soybeans to other places. Well, the original distribution of sales worked out, and it was, before this, and it's going to cost more to redistribute it in the end than what it would have been without tariffs. But we're here now, so
is there a case to be made? Because you understand as it's presented, the logic makes sense, but there's always more details. Every time you think you uncover a rock, there's more rocks underneath it to uncover, right? So, the basis of tariffs is to encourage domestic growth and encourage domestic markets. And the whole thing is always short-term loss, long-term gain. With things like soy, where it's not as high demand in the U.S. as it is in China. China takes in much more soy than the U.S. does. Unless biofuel markets grow and we invest in more crushing facilities to handle the net load, that's a really long-term plan. Is there room for that industry to grow? Like, is that something that people are banking on, or is it kind of like everyone's crossing their fingers?
No one's banking on that. There's hope of that, but no one is banking on that. Again, a rationale for doing the tariffs would be that we are going to break. There were barriers before before we began this trade situation that we're going to knock down by using these tariffs. You can be for that or against that, or be skeptical of that. The uncertainty of what we're doing on tariffs is going to, or has actually, hurt the U.S. agricultural sector, particularly the soybean, corn, and livestock. And we'll see who the gainers are.
Yeah, and well, in the Brazil situation, was it banked on the Brazil could achieve the output that they have? Because they've kind of like tripled down on their production in order to meet China's demands. Is that kind of a surprise?
No, I get so what we've seen, what has held Brazil back, and they still have an area of the size of Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa that they can bring into production. That's what they term degraded pasture, which means that they haven't fertilized it for a while, and so they can bring that acres on by converting that from pasture to cropland. Their major holdback has been infrastructure for moving it out of the country. All right, they've invested a lot in infrastructure with the backing of China. So yeah, as that infrastructure grows, we just have another. It's good for Brazil.
I was going to say, well, yeah, because anytime you drive a hard line, the number one thing you want to make sure of that there's not a more appealing option just down the road. That's the big thing with it. And if China's going to invest in Brazil's infrastructure, like they're definitely not investing in our infrastructure. So if they're investing in Brazil's infrastructure, they see something appealing there, and they know that they're going to net a positive, or they're going to get a better net result over that by putting money there in the long run than us. It kind of tells you where the wind is blowing, I guess. It's not what I want to say out loud. It's not like a great thing to say, but it's realistic.
Yeah, and even if we ended the trade war today, you planted the seeds of doubt about our desires to fulfill the trade situation in the future. And Brazil, you've increased the attractiveness of Brazil. Brazil would have grown anyway, but we've just sped it up considerably.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. So let's talk a little bit about, and soy is just one piece of the equation. Corn is the other part that is a big piece of the equation, especially if we're talking Midwest. Every time we do a flyer here for a Midwestern state, I always hear that we don't have enough corn photos, even if it's all corn photos.
There you go. Yeah,
it is always
corn.
My agents in the Midwest like to tell me how little emphasis that I put on corn and how much more that I should put on that. And that's a direct shout to Jeremy Stevens, if you're listening. That's you're welcome, sir. I'll get those photos. But no, as a whole, the impact on agriculture has been pretty substantial. Are we moving into a situation where, because we've had year over year for like the last 4 or 5 years, every single headline during the summer has been record set, price per acre, record set. Is something like this sort of that's like, I really hate to be hyperbolic with what I talk about, but is this sort of one of those doomsday things where land values in agriculture have gotten really, really high and commodities started dropping because of tariff and demand, well, demand related to tariffs? Is that sort of, what kind of situation is that creating? It doesn't sound good just from perspective.
So what happened is we were lower. We had lower prices until basically 2020. We saw prices increase, and as those prices increased, we actually saw our costs go up considerably, and that included seed. Fertilizer went up considerably due to Ukraine, Russia, and natural gas and the whole 9 yards there. Machinery went up between 21 and 23. The equipment cost of machinery went up. The new investment cost went up about 25%. So that's a huge number. So we built in a very much higher cost structure from 2020 to now. And it all was working pretty well with $5 and higher corn and, similarly priced soybeans. And now we're back to $4 corn and $10 soybeans. And no, it doesn't work at all. And so we calculate break-even prices for corn at $4.50 for corn. So we need $4.50 given average yields, and roughly $11.50 for soybeans. And we're $10 for soybeans and $4 for corn. So we're below those break-even levels. And you don't see costs coming down. So what has been filling the gap has been government payments. ECAP, commodity title. There's been several other payment levels. And that's kept us going so that we didn't have to see costs come down. We also haven't seen cash rents come down much. And they went up from 2020 till 2024, 25. No one, so are we going to see cash rents come down? And, the short answer is probably not until you see some sort of government payment not being there. And that's the other side of, these ad hoc government payments is they forestall or postpone the mechanisms of cash rents coming down and land prices coming down as well.
I was going to say you try for immediate relief, but in the end, are you actually creating another problem by doing that?
Yeah. So let's 2024, we did an ECAP payment of $37. We knew at that point in time we would have to do it again. Otherwise, in this year, otherwise we would be facing some losses. The one big beautiful bill did increase our commodity title payments, but that's a ways away down the road, and it looks like we're going to get another ECAP-like payment. So, yeah, you're kind of kicking the can down the road. And I don't see anything in the foreseeable future that causes corn and soybeans to come off $4 and $10. So we have to rationalize the input or the cost structure to get to $4 corn and $10 soybeans. Some of that is lower cost, and some of that's lower rent, and some of that's lower land prices. As long as we're getting some large federal payments, the adjustments are likely to be relatively small on the land price and the cash rent market. So right now, I would say what we're looking at on cash rents and land prices is just a straight line. They're not going up. They're not coming down. They've come off their highs. We're not setting records anymore, but we're also not seeing declining land prices and cash rent. And those those federal payments and the prospect of more of them is keeping those land prices where they're at.
In terms of the impact, especially in the Midwest, to things like soy and corn, are there easy to make? Are people starting to pivot to plan for different crops to try to offset some of the lack of demand, or what's the diversify move?
I mean, there really isn't a diversify move, right? So if as corn and soybean prices come down, or pick the one, all other prices come down too, and so because you don't need as much corn and soybeans, those other crops can come down in price as well. As I've been living in the Midwest for a while, for my life right now, and it's been more than the years I've been here, but corn and soybeans it's 90% of the crop. So what we would pivot to isn't obvious, or we're at the heart of the corn and soybean belt, so it's probably not us that are going to make the adjustment. The obvious, or the crop that we would probably think about is wheat, and wheat prices aren't that good now either. So and if we look at the profitability of wheat compared to corn and soybeans, we still say grow corn and soybeans. So there's not really anything that we can pivot from. So where you're likely to see those adjustments is probably not in the heart of the Corn Belt, like Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, but it's on like the Great Plains, where we've seen a lot of movement to corn and soybeans in recent time. Those areas probably will be the first to think about shifting out. And again, Illinois and Iowa, Indiana, the whole Midwest, there's not a real good alternative.
Is there an opportunity, like, because the shortfall in corn of 50 cents and the shortfall of soybeans, what is like $1.30? Like, was it 11? You said the break even was 11 what?
Yeah, 11.50 and the
11.50, so $1.50 totally. Yeah, that's some good.
No, so will we switch more from corn to soybeans?
Well, I was thinking about where I wanted to go with that was some switching up to like regenerative agriculture to make up for some of the input costs. Is that doable, and doable fast enough to make a difference?
Yeah, so that's the issue with regenerative projects, like where you're trying to reduce inputs, is that takes time.
Right? That's what I ask. Yeah, like, can you do it? Is that even doable on a quick scale?
No, and it's so it takes time, and it generally, most people would say that it takes off yield in the first part of it. So we're not that. So we have enough pain at the beginning.
So not only will it not go fast enough, but you'll also lose more in the short run.
Yeah. So I actually think the lower, the lower prices probably slow the movements to regenerative agriculture rather than speed them up. What I think the Midwest is going to be looking at is first, the biggest area where this will become evident is in machinery. Okay, we've seen machinery costs go up considerably. So, and the one way we can see machinery cost, the best way we can keep machinery cost in line is running those machines over a lot of acres, which is what we always say. But combines in particular have gone up so much that if you're running a combine over less than 3,000 acres, you got to question that investment in that combine anymore. So maybe we'll see some farmers getting together to 1,500 acres and sharing equipment. Farmers have been very resistant to do that in the past because it requires cooperation. But things like that may be things that we'll see first. We're also going to likely see, do we need all of these inputs, and are some of those going to be something that we can cut? Those things take time to work through as well.
I was going to say, because the new cost for a combine it's getting up. We're playing with $1 million, right?
Yeah, you're playing. Yeah,
you're dipping your toe in that water of we're starting to get to the $1 million mark for something like a combine. Because that's one of those pieces of equipment that I think a lot of people, like, you see it in the field and you just don't quite rationalize how much that thing is. I mean, most valuable person in the country right now is probably going to be your equipment repair people, right? Like, that's keep those things moving.
Yeah, and cost of replacement parts haven't come down; they've gone up. And the other thing that if you want a good job, get into equipment repair, and I'll get you a job in the Midwest.
I was going to say, right? That's a heck of a gig right now for yes.
Yeah.
So how do you mentioned this probably not affecting land values a whole lot, and to your point, yeah, we're not setting records anymore, but we're also not looking at a total collapse in land values.
Yeah.
How do you see this playing out in terms of land value? Because that's the thing that pertains.
Yeah.
My company especially pays attention to that. I would definitely.
Yeah. So, I see a period of long-term not going up. Let's just say that we're sort of at this level, and maybe even declining over time. And I could see where we would have a 20% decline in land price. And actually, that's not big compared to what it all went up, but a 20% decline in land price happening over time, as if the situation continues. Again, I think the government payments that are being made and are proposed to be made help hold up those land prices. So the minute we stop seeing those government payments being made, we would see much more downward pressure on land prices. Everybody's sort of kicking the can down the road. We've done this in the past, and maybe something good happens in the next 3-4 years, and we're out of this situation. And if not, we continue making pretty large government payments every year and holding things together.
So there's kind of a balancing act that has to take place in terms of now you're creating the problem. Like, you need to subsidize, but if you over subsidize, then you become reliant on, and you can't have a free market that's still reliant on.
Yeah. So
right. Like,
yeah. So here we're in this situation where we've gotten used to receiving government payments. I mean, since we had MFPs, market facilitation program payments, during the first Trump administration, and that was for the trade war that happened then. Then we had CFAP payments, the coronavirus aid assistance packages, PPPs, IDLs. So we've gotten used to this, and that has kept our land prices up there. So we got to watch the political winds just as much as anything else, and that's not the best place to be at.
Right. I mean, that's it, that we start venturing into political terms that I'm not even going to go into in this. Stay out of that. I'll just let me come up with a quick analogy. We don't want to turn everything into Yellowstone grizzlies. You don't want them, hunting with the campers, because hunting in the wild is harder.
Yep. You got the situation well.
I had to come up with a more colorful way to say it. So in terms of, to shift focus a little bit, we've got, government shutdowns hitting everything pretty heavy. How do you anticipate any long-term effects of the government shutdown in agriculture?
The current, not really. I mean, I think they're going to, I don't know. I've flown since the government shut down and TSA was working in there.
Did you? Because I'm going on a flight tomorrow, and I got my.
Yeah, it worked fine.
It worked fine. Room for optimism.
Yeah. So it's going to slow some things down, but no, I mean, it's political theater. So.
Yeah. What do you think? What's your overhead kind of like grand picture of the state of agriculture right now in the United States, and what we're headed into for the next, we'll say like the next year or 2 years?
Yeah,
because you can't really predict anything outside of that.
By the way, the livestock sector is doing pretty well.
Livestock is killing it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had a cow right now.
Yeah. If you had a cow, you would sell it for slaughter because it's worth so much.
I would sell it immediately. I would have cows, plural, a lot of them. Yes.
Yeah. So the cattle sector and the livestock sector is doing pretty well. Here's my outlook. And again, you heard my break, even 450 and 1150. I don't see any reason to expect corn prices to be moving out of the $4 and range, and soybeans to move out of the $10 range for the foreseeable future. So we're here until something changes, and what that something is I mean, if you want to predict the next Ukraine-Russia war, go ahead. But it's more likely that we're here for a long time.
Is that because just kind of reading between the lines, is that because of how tariffs have affected our relationship with trading partners like China on a permanent basis?
We've impacted those relationships, and what, and the other part of it is what we had from 2005 to 2012 was a pretty good price situation because of increasing use of corn and going into ethanol. Well, you look forward now. What we're going to continue to grow 2 bushels more per acre per year and a half bushel more soybeans. What is going to take that off the market? And you can't identify the demand that takes that off the market. Oh, by the way, you have the area of Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa sitting in Brazil that can be brought into production. Okay, so you have the ability to supply more crops and you don't see a growing demand. And there we are. So we're here, $4 corn and $10 soybeans until Brazil has a drought or the U.S. has a drought, and then we get some price relief for a year. But there's nothing that I can see on the horizon that changes that. Some people have hopes that biofuels, and in particular soybean oil use in biofuels, increase, and that may take off of some of our demand there. I'm not hopeful of that. So, and even if it did, we still have Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa sitting in Brazil. So that's where we're at, and we have to rationalize the cost structure to that level. Or we continue to get government payments. So it looks to me like we're going to get government payments for the next year or two. And that'll keep us going steady.
How much that will prop it up and how much we can keep that going is going to be a bottom line thing. Yeah.
Yep. So we're going to Washington for a while. And again, that, as you mentioned, has considerable downsides, and it, in the end, probably slows the adjustments that need to happen.
I want to note it that you're the second person in the last week that I've talked to on this podcast where I asked, what are we hoping for? And the answer was drought in Brazil.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
Which, I mean, that expresses some direness to the situation where you're hoping for a weather pattern, right? That's it's not optimal at the moment. And I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that's real. I mean, what's the old quote? Facts don't care about your feelings. Like, I don't want to doom and gloom, but it doesn't look great.
Yeah. And again, we went off the euphoria of the 2022, 2023, and we knew that wasn't going to last. But we didn't know we could get back to, we got back to $4 corn and $10 soybeans quicker than most people thought. I thought maybe we had set a bit higher plateau, but we haven't. So we got to adjust now.
Makes sense. It does make sense. Are there any areas of optimism?
You can still sell your cattle, but no.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah. So, no, this is causing, obviously, we in the Midwest to rethink things, and we're a resilient bunch. We don't know necessarily what the answers are, but we'll figure out something in the long run. So,
that's a nugget of optimism, and I like it. Well, yeah, I want to pay attention to time too. I've held you captive here on the show for a good chunk here. So yeah, I just want to thank you. And again, your information makes up a chunk of a few releases that we're doing here with a few individuals, and there are echoes that are so similar across the board to where it's like, it's not just one opinion, like this is industry wide. But your individual expertise, the places where you can deep dive into are just so valuable. So I just thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. So,
anytime, always, anytime.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, have a good one, and I will let you get on your way.
See you, man.
This concludes today's episode of the National Land Podcast with Dr. Gary Schnitkey of the University of Illinois, Professor of Agricultural and Consumer Economics and Soybean Industry Chair in Agricultural Strategy. You can learn more about the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com. And don't forget, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss our next exciting episodes.